Welcome to the Selfish Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Lisa Ferland. Now, she is a author and also a crowdfunding contributor who helps people to bring their books to life through crowdfunding platforms. I'm really happy to get to know her story and a bit more about what she does for work and career and passion. But I also just want to know about her life and herself. So welcome, Lisa. Can we start first by hearing a little bit about your childhood? Can you tell me what your childhood was like pre 10 years old? Like, paint me a picture of life.
Oh, wow. What a great question. Yes, I would say pre 10 years old, my days were filled mostly with bike riding. My brother and I were about a year and a half apart in age, so fairly close. And I grew up in upstate New York in the US, and we would go bike riding in the warm weather all around. And it was sort of my mom would kick us out of the house constantly just to be outside, and we would go and explore the neighboring cornfields, and there were just fields everywhere. It was before sort of the housing market had taken over the land. So there's just open fields everywhere. We would just kind of go off and get in trouble and climb trees and fall down and scrape our knees and everything. That's basically what we did in all of our free time.
Nice. And what was your parents like? What did they do for a living and how were they?
My mom was an educator, so she was a teacher, and my dad was an engineer. So very sort of practical. They both worked for state government. So they had strong opinions about working for the government.
Nice. And how was school life? What was school like when you was a child?
School was, I think I was a pretty solid student. I was a bit nervous and anxious about going to school and getting good grades. But it was okay. I had fun. I had my friends, and it was a bit stressful around the grading.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was like I kind of just enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed all of the subjects. I didn't really have a specialty when I was growing up. I just kind of loved reading and math and history and all of it.
Oh, nice. And do you remember having the first sort of passion or desire to be something when you was younger, like whether it was a career or just something you was interested in?
Yes, I was positive that I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was 100%
Mm.
positive because I loved animals and I loved dogs, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Oh, nice. And what would you say was your earliest struggle in life, and how was that, and how did you overcome it if you did?
The in terms of earliest struggle, I feel like, I didn't really struggle much as a kid. We did martial arts as a family, so we were always
Interesting.
yeah, it was really fun. It's something my dad did, and he, was always in the dojo. So I grew up in the dojo as well, and it just was a natural way to spend time together as a family. I think my biggest struggle was when I had to just like the physical demands that practice or way of life puts on your body at a young age. And I was one of the few females, children, like since I was a child, I started when I was 5, doing it. I think the biggest struggle for me was just the physical tests of endurance and pain, and going through that as, a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old, and then fighting big sweaty men and really like
Yeah.
sparring with them, and getting tackled and taken down to the floor and everything, and kind of in this, looking back on it, sort of toxic male environment, and trying to fit into that perspective, and trying to find out, who I was in that environment when I was not a big sweaty male myself. So that was probably my biggest struggle, was, that self-discovery, but also, being part of a community, and, finding where I fit within that community.
Okay, and you started as early as 5. How long did you continue, and do you still practice?
No, I stopped when I went off to college at 18. So I was in for, 13 years in total. But from 5 to 18, and I trained, 2 or 3 times a week. So it was quite a commitment, and a
Mm.
year-round commitment as well. Um, so yeah, it was definitely my passion for a long time, and then I sort of stopped it because it felt like that chapter of my life was over. But I absolutely loved, the discipline that came with it and the community. But I just didn't feel like I wanted to continue that, going on. And, since I've had kids myself, I tried to find a dojo for them if they showed an interest in martial arts. And it is a special thing to find a community of like-minded people you can practice with.
Yeah, it's like you say, finding the right community and not giving up on the first one.
Exactly.
What martial arts practice was it?
It was a Budokai called, it was a Japanese martial arts.
What would you say was like the biggest takeaway from that? I know you said discipline. What still
Mhm.
does it give you in this time in your life from practicing that for such a long time at such an early age?
If the core belief that it's truly mind over matter, that you can truly do anything, and you go through incredible feats of physical strength or endurance or pain or challenges or whatever, with sort of the mental discipline. And I would say it was, karate is very zen like, it's moving zen. And so when you're doing the forms or the katas, like, it's very peaceful, and you go into sort of an altered state of being, and it helps you escape your issues. And so I think I've always learned, especially at a young age, that exercise is a great escape from stress, from the daily stresses, and to train your body and to have those quiet moments as well. There's a period of meditation before and after each class runs. And so it was a nice way to kind of like, bookend the physical exercise. So even now, if I go for a long walk or a run, I'll have a moment of, warm up and then cool down to kind of bookend that event, so that I have some time to transition back into the real world, some quiet time.
Yeah, that's great because martial arts has been a really big impact on my life and
Mhm.
from an early age. And I find it's like the philosophy behind it. Like you say, it's more than just the action and what's shown. There's a lot of people now just think of the martial arts as just fighting, but it really gives you a sense of inner connection for me. Um,
Yes,
to know your body and feel your body, but also to know your mind and feel your mind, and trying to bring them into balance.
exactly,
And like I said, I
exactly. And it
was
gives
talking.
you yeah, and it gives you a way to process, what's going on, or escape your day. You can focus on something else, and then you find that you have more energy to tackle whatever issues you're dealing with, or feel refreshed in some way. So I think it's incredible in terms of providing that benefit to your daily life.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with a few people as well, that especially to people that don't do a lot of movement and exercise, that certain movements and exercise create more energy, a bit like the self-winding watches. If you don't move, you actually become slower. If you got to
Mhm,
move to make energy, yet they're tired and they sort of go, no, I'm too tired to exercise. It's like, no, this movement and certain things will actually energize you, whereas they see
mhm.
it as being something that taxes you.
Yeah, and like anything, you have to be careful with what you do, because some exercises can limit your range of motion, or damage your joints or result in injury. So you don't want to do anything that reduces your ability to use your physical body. You want to use, that's why I love stretching and walking and hiking, because I haven't injured myself doing any of those things.
Yeah.
Depending on the martial art you go into, some of them are quite uh, twisting on your joints, and can be, a bit dangerous when practiced over, years and years and years. So you have to, be mindful, and be gentle with your body, and listen to your body for sure.
Yeah, and having a good teacher, a good sensei, a good
Yes,
instructor, someone that actually cares for you and your well-being, to be able to see more than you can see how you're managing yourself. Do you
absolutely.
have other influences early in your life, like role models or any inspiration that kept you going when you was younger?
I would say that was definitely the biggest one. And that was pretty instrumental in terms of, managing egos, I think.
Yeah.
Because there were some egos in the dojo, and it was a lot of life lessons packed into a very short amount of time, I think.
Yeah. And if you could go back now to your younger self around that age, around let's say 16 years old, how do
Mhm.
you think that conversation would go, and what do you think your younger self would think of you now?
That's a great question. Just because I was very insecure at 16, I think most teenagers are, maybe female teenagers more than most. Um, yeah, I think I just had a lot of anxiety around what the future would hold, and to just say, just keep doing it, like you're doing all the right things. And there are no mistakes that you make on this path. There are absolutely no mistakes. Like everything um, is, guiding you to where you're supposed to be. Even the places that, don't feel like they're worthwhile checking out. It's still all part of the main plan. So no, I think I would just no spoilers. I would just say, just keep going and just don't stress so much about what's going to happen because
Yeah, that's
it'll
perfectly
all
said.
work out.
Yeah. I was actually speaking to, it was another martial artist, and we was talking about mistakes, and I was saying to me, a mistake is only a mistake when you mistaken the opportunity that was given. There's always something there. There's some reason in that situation that was going to, like you say, transform you or give you a new perspective, a new understanding, even if it comes years later. And
Yeah.
then have that mistake.
Yeah, and I think for me, it would be, and I've done this mostly because it's just my personality, but really following the path of least resistance when it comes to, not when it comes to work ethic, of course, but when it comes to, if you try something a million times and it's just like nothing lines up, nothing is working. And this really applies in a lot of relationships or friendships. It's just that person you just don't connect with. There's no connection or vibe. Everything is just off. It feels off. Because I've been in situations where everything just flows and it's easy and it works and it's fun and it's amazing. And that's when I feel like I'm on the best path for me, when it's easy. And so it's not that it doesn't require hard work or preparation or education, but just that all of those things, when they're aligned, it just opens up and it feels like you're walking down a paved road, as opposed to, when you're off that path and you're on a bumpy road and it's hard and you're climbing uphill and you're like, oh, what's happening? Sometimes there are elements of that, but it shouldn't be like that all the time. That's when
Yeah.
I kind of tell myself, look, you're not going in the right direction if all signs are pointing to, turn around, go back,
Yeah,
choose
it's like
choose the
paddling.
other path. Yeah.
And from what I've seen on your YouTube and your website and stuff, you've moved from America to, I want to say Switzerland, but Sweden keeps coming to mind. It's Switzerland?
It's Sweden. No, it's Sweden. You're
Sweden.
right.
For some reason, they both just keep getting churned up in my head. So
Yep,
you
that's
moved to
common.
Sweden. What age did you move and what was your reasons?
We moved for my husband's job, and he had it. It's kind of funny because it makes me sound sort of like a typical accompanying spouse. We traveled for my husband's job. Actually, I was the one with all the job opportunities the year prior. We were going to move to Singapore for my career. And then I became pregnant. We're like, it's probably not a good idea to move away that far away from family with a new baby. But then we ended up moving anyway after the baby was born, because we had another opportunity come up, but this time for my husband's job. So, um, in terms of moving international, it was definitely something we had been wanting to do for a while. It was just which opportunity to take advantage of, and Sweden seemed like a perfect fit for our needs for work-life balance and what I wanted. It came at a sort of a critical point in my career where I felt like it wasn't growing anymore.
Hmm.
I was kind of just felt like I was running in place and then missing out on my
Okay, yeah.
my my baby's life. I was like, well, this is stupid. Why am I trading my precious time for this career? So it just seemed to make sense. And so we packed up within 6 weeks and sold everything and changed addresses quite quickly. And haven't really looked back. It's been almost 10 years now living in Sweden.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you found, I want to get into your career as well, but first I just wonder, how have you found the past, say, 2 years with everything that's gone on in the world that's affected everyone in all sorts of ways? How have you found that COVID and that situation has affected your own self and your self-development process?
I think pretty topsy-turvy, probably like everybody else. I mean, a huge reassessment of a lot of things in terms of, career and how we view living, because we live far from family. And before it was no problem, pre-COVID, it was no problem. You just hop on a plane and head out. And the worst you had to really deal with was jet lag.
Yeah.
But now, it's, can we even travel? We were forbidden to travel for so long, and there are travel bans in place. And so it makes you reassess, okay, the pros and cons, all of a sudden the cons of living internationally way far away from family became much heavier when there's no option to see family, especially during, a deadly pandemic without that sort of escape route. It just felt a little more like isolating, and like you really are on your own. There's no one,
Yeah.
no one can. But fortunately, we've lived here long enough. We have such a wonderful community of local friends. So we've just had to rely much more on our personal network than we have in the past. But career-wise, definitely forced me to do things I normally wouldn't have done. That then again, there are no mistakes. Revealed that I was truly on the right path the whole time, and I shouldn't have ever left that path. I just needed to experience that to remind myself.
Yeah. And with your career, what would you sum up your career? How would you describe what you do now?
My career was always sort of one foot in, one foot out. So I'm a trained epidemiologist. So I'm actually trained with a master's degree in public health. And during the pandemic, it's quite more people know what an epidemiologist does now after COVID. But pre-COVID, no one really knew, and no one really cared. So I was working as a freelance consultant in public health, as well as author and crowdfunding consultant. But that was much more sort of on the side, with public health being my main focus. And during the pandemic, I had this master's degree just sitting there. I was like, maybe I should apply for a job at the European Centers for Disease Control and help out with the COVID response. So that's exactly what I did. And I worked there for a year doing the COVID response. And that experience really solidified that I can't work for anyone else ever again. I have to work for myself. It was not an experience going from being an entrepreneur, freelancer for 8 years to then working for a sort of bureaucratic government job was not the direction I wanted to take my career in. It felt much more limiting. And again, I grew up with parents who worked for the government, and I found myself having the same conversations that they were having when I was growing up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually turning into my mother. Like this is happening in real time. And that wasn't those complaints and gripes every day, and just that lifestyle wasn't what I wanted for myself. So in March of this year, I decided to focus back full time on my own business and take it full time and work with authors on a full time basis. And no regrets. It's been absolutely incredible.
Where do you get the sort of drive and passion from to, say, be an entrepreneur, and why books?
Well, the books, because just from I kind of fell into entrepreneurism. Because of my American status, I wasn't able to work for a European agency like the European Centers for Disease Control until I became an EU citizen, which is totally normal. Every government agency sort of requires that you be a citizen of the country in which you practice public health. So I had to wait 5 years anyway before I could, in order to be eligible for citizenship.
Yeah.
So I had to do something with my 5 years. I can't just sit in my hands. And I had books in me, and I had books that wanted to be written and were begging to be written. So I just started doing that. And then I needed a way to fund one of my books. So I raised $10,000 on Kickstarter for my second book. And that just sort of led to one opportunity to another. And people were asking me, how did you do it? Can you help me do mine? And it became, so many requests that I decided to formalize my knowledge into actual services and provide that as a service, since I was, advising people anyway. It didn't make sense to, continue to take time out of my day without kind of formalizing things and making a structure around it. So the drive to be an entrepreneur is really because it's so much fun and it's amazing. And I love working with authors who are doing such cool projects. And, children's book authors are some of the nicest people I've ever met. They just want to change the world, through the eyes of children. So I love working with children's book authors, but I also love working with fellow entrepreneurs who are writing their own books and nonfiction books and self-help books and all these different kinds of great, wonderful thing. So diversifying the world of literature, using crowdfunding as a way to democratize the publishing process, I think is a fantastic way to sort of revolutionize the publishing, the
Yeah,
self-publishing, especially.
really opportunities to a lot of people.
Exactly. Bring more opportunities and also, improve the quality of self-published books.
Yeah. What was your first two books about?
It was about giving birth in a foreign country. So they were
Okay,
actually two
interesting. Yeah.
two anthologies, the Knocked Up Abroad series. And they're not just my stories, they're stories from women all around the world. So I was very deeply rooted in the foreign-born women community. And this was back when Facebook was, incredible, like connector at, housing communities and everything. So it was quite easy to find these women around the world and collect their stories and edit them into an anthology worth reading.
Okay, no, it's really interesting just to hear what gets someone sort of what they want to put to pen to paper too,
Yeah. Yeah.
and create and put out there to the world. And have you got more books in the process that are your own?
Well, I've published a bunch of children's books, and the question is always, what are you working on next? Like, that's I'm working on, like 5 different projects at the moment. I can't speak to anyone in particular, but I'm currently exploring the world of artificial intelligence illustration. So
Okay.
doing digital illustrations using AI, so programming keywords and different settings into the AI and actually having the AI create the illustration, which has just become this passion and hobby and just really fun thing because as a writer, I don't get to express myself visually. And so the AI is a fun way to explore that medium. So I'm currently working on that and wondering if I should create the illustrations and then backtrack and write a story around them, or what people are interested in reading. So it's all a big experiment at the moment, but I think that will be my next Kickstarter project, is sort of seeing who wants to buy an illustrated book, not really for children, but much more around more adult themed fantasy, elves, fairies, trolls, giants, folklore, things like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was actually through I was looking into crowdfunding myself because I've started a book project and I actually had a consultation with one of your staff the other
Mm.
week. But I'm at such early stages, they really helped explain a few things to me and fill in gaps. So I'm sort of on the waiting process as I get the book made.
Yeah.
So it's ready to actually launch and start. And I'm still tying up between crowdfunding or trying to get it published. And it's quite a not messy place, but there's almost so many different avenues, so many different things you can do now to actually get a
Yes.
book made.
Exactly. And there's so many different paths to publication. You can choose any of them. Any of them are fantastic. It's just you have to commit to one. You have to commit
Yeah,
to one process and then just go for it. And I think when it comes to crowdfunding, it requires an audience. So your book can be not quite finished, but you have to have an audience of readers who are excited about your topic area. So you can start shopping around the idea and building an audience and collecting people who are interested and who are fans of the work, because really that's the hardest part, is getting the word out about it. And some authors find it easier to market a book once it's available and ready for purchase. And other authors find it really nice to talk about a book and get people excited about a project where they can have input and get
yeah,
feedback. So people love offering feedback. So you can collect a lot of reader feedback that way and get people engaged and really excited about your book. So there's so many different ways you can do it. It just depends on where you are in the process and how you want to structure your book launch.
yeah. Have you found, I've noticed like a sort of trend with a lot of writers or things that are known about people that are writers, that they're quite isolated because you have to spend a lot of time on your own, in your own mind, in your own thoughts to put the pen to paper and get your message out. But is there a sort of mental struggle with having to also put themselves out there and interact?
Yeah, I think a lot of authors struggle with that. They just want to create without creating for a specific purpose or with higher end goal in mind. I mean, I would love it if we could all just create and pay the bills and, just do that. That's fine. But I don't know anyone who does that. I don't know anyone who can just create whatever they want without thinking about what their audience likes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anyone who does that. Name one creator
Right.
who just does anything they want and they get paid, they're handsomely rewarded for it. I don't know.
I think some people might, if they've got already a really established career,
Yeah,
and they can
maybe.
sort of put something out, whether it's like filmmakers or something like, say, Tarantino, for example, who's done so short amount of films, but it's sort of got a bit more free range. If he was to make something, he can almost make what he wants. But they
Almost,
didn't
yeah.
start that
Yeah, so we can name one, maybe one
one.
person.
But even
But I
I
would
think it's down to their own structures that they've built.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and even then, you're judged based on how successful it is, how did it resonate with audiences, what were the box office statistics? So yeah, I think the measuring stick, especially pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, all of the measuring sticks are quite different now. We actually saw crowdfunding boom in 2020 because people were on their computers all the time. So more people were on their computers because they were working from home. They had money. The people who, still had their jobs had a lot of money because they weren't traveling or doing anything. So they were happy to support projects, creative projects that they may not have seen in other places. And also, it felt good to, support local creators and to support the arts. So there was actually a huge, huge boom. It was Kickstarter's biggest year in publishing. And so I
Mm,
think, some people launched this year thinking it would be the same as last year, and it's not quite the same. So every year, every situation, every month is different. But the core things that have to stay the same are you have to create something that people really want and find the people who really want the thing you're creating. They're out there. It just takes time and effort and energy to find them. But you have to
yeah.
create a crowd of those people to get them to support your campaign.
Yeah, and I think it's often a sort of view that a lot of people have, that if they're in a, say, financial position where they can't contribute to other people, that they assume that everyone's in a tough financial
Mhm.
situation. But there's always people who've got money, always people who haven't got it, and there's lots of people out there that, like you say, just want to support something, especially during this time
Yes.
when they can. Someone used the word, I think he called it conscious currency, might have been
Oh,
what he
maybe.
said, and he's like, you can, because
Mhm.
people are now more during the pandemic, they've become more conscious of where they spend their money, and they want to put it into better causes.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
not just spend, spend, spend. So if you have a cause, if you have something that's actually got some worth, some value that someone can then contribute to, they're more than happy to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
just getting in
100%.
front of them, it's the, like you said, the obstacle is, can you find them?
Exactly. And I mean, there are so many people out there who still have plenty of money. I think the mindset part of separating, your financial situation from what other people's situation is that's a huge just mental mindset that I work with a lot of authors on in terms of, reassuring them, calming their fears. Like there are people who will spend this much on, Kickstarter. Here are 10 examples. Like let me show you. So there are tons of people out there happy to support creative projects, super backers who support 25 projects or more at $10 every year. So people just putting money onto the platform constantly for projects that resonate with them. So there are people
Yeah,
out there. And then, the other thing you said about people being more mindful about the projects they support. Yes. And I think if your project does have a higher value to it or has a higher purpose, that is a great marketing point because you can connect to people's higher, purpose, desire, like join this mission type of messaging. But at the end of the day, people at the end of the day, they want the thing. They don't really necessarily care as much about the feel good value. That's bonus. At the core of it, they have to want to read your book, and they have to be
yeah,
really interested in what you're doing and what you're writing about. And then it's finding those super fans, those super people who will share and grab other people and bring them in and say, hey, you got to check out Luke's campaign. It looks amazing. Come check it out. So there's a lot of organic sharing that happens that way as well.
okay. And with feedback that I've just had from putting my own personal information online and putting my face on YouTube and just even talking like this, interacting with people, I get a lot of people saying, how do you deal with sort of judgments and expectations? And I imagine a lot of people that you work with that go into crowdfunding, and probably yourself at the beginning, how did you yourself sort of deal with the fear of judgments about putting yourself out there?
Mhm.
And what have you noticed with your clients, and how do you help them in that area?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fears going into this, and crowdfunding, because it is very public, will bring up all of those fears. So it's important. That's one of the first things I work with my authors is write down your fears, because we're going to talk about it, and we need to get it on the table. For everyone, it's different. Some people may be fear of judgment, others may be fear of commitment, for others may be fear of failure. Other people think, they're just afraid they're not going to have enough time to commit to it, and so it's like we have to go through the fears and pull it apart and say, okay, what is in our control and what are we going to stop caring about? Because at the end of the day, if we care about what everybody else thinks about us, what are we doing any of this for? Like, do you care about it? Like, at the end of the day, I think we put so much value on what other people think about what we're doing that it paralyzes us and prevents us from taking any action. And I'm guilty of it myself too, afraid of sharing something. A lot of authors are really afraid to share their work because they've put their heart into this. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears into these words, and they're afraid of them being torn apart, or a bad review, or someone being disappointed, or someone saying this isn't worth 30 euros. I can't believe this. And so they're afraid of all the negative things. And really you're preventing yourself from getting all of the positive things. You're preventing yourself from hearing from the readers who love it and who are excited about it, because those are the people you want to focus on, the people who love it just as much as you do. That's the best feedback in the world, is when you get feedback from a reader saying, oh my gosh, I loved your book, and you get real feedback. And so in terms of helping people get over their fears, I encourage them to share their book with as many people as possible. In
Yeah.
whatever state it's in, share it with as many people as possible. So many new authors are afraid that someone's going to steal their idea and go to market with it before them.
Yeah, I've had that voice to me from other people. But if you put it out, someone else will steal it. And I was like,
No,
unless you're not
not.
bringing your own uniqueness into it, there's nothing to steal. Because
There's nothing to
so
steal. It's such a fear, because you don't want anyone to take your idea. However, I can't tell you how many ideas are created at the same time that just happen to be sort of co-created coincidentally, because the ideas are there, but you're still going to do it differently. Especially, if you're writing a children's book, the market is saturated. So someone's
yeah,
probably working on a book exactly like yours. They're not going to steal your idea. They're going to do it differently, but they're working on a book or a topic that's very similar. It's very hard to come up with a unique spin. The unique spin is you. You're going to see the world differently, and so you have to stay true to you and your interpretation. But don't be afraid of sharing your ideas. And in fact, I've written about this in the past. You should share your ideas with people who've done it successfully before you, with the people who do know what it takes to take it from idea to fully executed book, because they're not stealing anyone's ideas. Like, they know,
yeah,
like, this requires a passion. And if you're not passionate about the topic, it's just going to sit there. But also, if you don't do anything with your passion, it's not going to go anywhere either. So I would say, to get over that fear of judgment, you just have to start putting yourself out there, in big ways, in bigger ways, and reaching out to big people and New York Times bestselling authors, and get their opinions on your book. Because what's the worst that's going to happen?
exactly. Yeah, perfect.
Nothing. That
Yeah,
they ignore you, they don't reply to your email. Like, okay, that's already happening. So the upside, you really have nothing to lose. And that's why I think Kickstarter, which is the all or nothing approach, is very successful, because it forces you to do things you normally wouldn't do, because you have absolutely nothing to lose. You might as well go for it. You might as well go for the gold and reach out to people you normally wouldn't talk to.
yeah, and like you said, I like what you said. It's what you think for a second. What's the worst that can happen, and that's okay. But then, what's the best that can happen? And it's only going to
Exactly.
happen if you take the opportunity, if you put yourself out there and actually just go for it.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier with the mistakes, and if it doesn't turn out the way you wanted, it's just that's the way it's meant to be. And you
Yeah.
go on to the next.
And it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. I think, if you launch a crowdfunding campaign and it fails, you learn from it. You go, okay, what happened? What didn't I like about that? I wasn't prepared, or my audience wasn't large enough, or my goal was too high, or my reward structure was off. Like, you're going to learn so much. Then when you relaunch, you'll be better off for it. I have only seen a handful of people who fail once, fail more than once. Usually, if they fail once, the next campaign is successful. It's only the people who, turn around and launch right away without changing anything who fail again. It's like you didn't learn anything. You didn't actually apply the learnings from that first campaign. You just gave yourself more time, and then it didn't leverage itself properly.
Okay, and where would you say for people that are looking to, say, engage in a community with other writers and other authors, what platforms do you recommend to your clients to get engaged on?
It really depends on your genre, actually. I'm learning that authors in different genres like to hang out in different spaces online.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, children's book authors are pretty huge on Facebook and Facebook groups. So you just need to get in a group and then engage meaningfully. It's not just sell, 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 link, link, link. It's, asking questions and providing feedback and really being an engaged member of the community. I would say, sci-fi folks, they're on Reddit and Discord and other platforms like that. I think a lot of authors are on Twitter. And again, you get out what you put into it. If you're not really engaging with other people, you're not going to get as much out of the community. But I would say that all authors should be collecting people's emails who are interested in hearing what you have to say, and get in the habit of writing emails, so you can start sharing your writing in that way with people who want to read it.
Okay, yeah. Because for me personally, I've been trying to grow my audience and people that are interested in the content that I'm sharing. But for me, I stayed away from all social media pretty much my entire life.
Hmm.
So I only just started a Facebook account this year and just starting to learn it and sort of go through it all. Because before I didn't really have anything I wanted to share or wanted to say.
Yeah,
But I found it really interesting. Like you said, there's very different audiences on each platform. But I found
yeah.
the group in Facebook very interactive and lots of people that are there quite a lot. And like you said, we do want to have a conversation if you're there to communicate, not sell.
Exactly, exactly. It can be very hard to sell in those. I mean, and people with Facebook groups, they're, stricter on, no promoting and no self-promotion, things like that. So it can be very difficult, even if you have something to offer for free, very difficult to share anything. Like if you wanted to share your podcast, it might become, hard for you to get word out about that. You might have to do that in the comments. There are ways around everything, but I think if you stay with genuine, authentic connection, um, it takes longer, but it is much more effective.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years? Where would you like to be sort of internally in yourself, but also externally in your life?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get through each year at a time. I think with the pandemic, I learned that you can think that you have a 5-year plan, and then it just goes toes up, and you're like, oh, that was not it at all. I need to rethink everything. Um, where I would like to be, personally and professionally. I think personally, exactly where I am now, someone who is feeling fulfilled, satisfied with the way I spend my days. I love having a flexible schedule, but with some structure to it so that I stay productive and keep getting things done. I would, love to stay in the creative fields in some way. I don't know if I see myself being a crowdfunding consultant for, the next 15 years. Maybe. It's definitely a challenge in something, if you were a Facebook ads person, it's so niche down that you have to stay current on it, and I continue to learn new things. And so I can see, crowdfunding is very similar, and the evolution of the platform is very similar to the evolution of, let's say, Facebook or Instagram, where the algorithms change and things,
Yeah.
the features change. So you have to be an expert sort of on the platform. So it's interesting. I'm not sure how much, if it's enough interest to keep me going for 15 years or so. I think I need some more healthy projects under my belt. But I would love to keep working with authors and making an impact on people's lives on the individual basis. I think that I'd be very happy just doing that for a bit longer still. Financial growth. I'm not here looking to, be a multimillionaire. I just want to, have a bunch of clients and work with really awesome people, and, make enough money to pay my bills. That's really it.
Yeah, you used one word there that I'm starting to talk more about with people, because I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with and are missing. Is you said right now you have fulfillment and you feel fulfilled in ways. What would you say contributes fulfillment in your life now? And did you notice when that came? Was there a point where you were feeling unfulfilled?
Yes. Yeah. So I think my love language, it's taken me a while to narrow down what my love language is. I'm like, it's all of it. No, I think words of affirmation are my love language. So I really thrive on positive feedback, really any feedback, but positive feedback entirely. And I found that when I was working, for the large government agency and was getting zero feedback, that was a huge just energy vortex that I just would pour energy into and I would get nothing back. And I realized that I did not feel fulfillment in completing projects. I did not feel fulfillment in, writing reports that got shared 10,000 times. Like I did not care. There was no fulfillment in that. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel anything. It just felt like an energy drain. And so you could look at that and say, well, that's academic success. You're published in peer-reviewed journals. What an amazing success. But I didn't feel any fulfillment there, because even though it was hard work and, was sort of the summation of my skills and my creativity, I never got any feedback from it. I never received someone saying, hey, good job. Never. It was like, it was just all outgoing. And so, in working for myself and working with authors, I get feedback every day. Thank you. Thank you for this. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for this. I get comments on my social media. I get, feedback in email from my clients. Can you do this for me? And I do it for them. And they say, thank you. This is perfect. Or when I'm helping someone who has an active campaign, which is very stressful for them and for me, because I'm as invested as they are in their success. I get feedback from people saying, I couldn't have done it without you. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And it's that personal level feedback that provides my fulfillment. So I know for everybody, it will look different. And it will take exploration and self-analysis to discover what drives your fulfillment. But I think it's important to know that there's no one answer for anyone. You have to know what checks your boxes in terms of making you feel like you're productive that day, or what makes you feel like you accomplished something, whether that's one thing off your checklist, or whether that's a huge book or a successful campaign or whatever it is. So for me, it's just a thanks. It's just a word of affirmation, a positive affirmation. That's really it.
Oh, nice. And I imagine that's also made you sort of reflect and putting that out to the people that you do meet and do work with and socialize with, how important just a thank you and them affirmations can be to change someone's life.
Yeah. And you can cheat the system and just listen to positive affirmations yourself. Like you can tell the affirmations to yourself. But yes, it is a way that I have found to reprogram my perspective and to, just keep going, especially when things get tough. A little word goes a long way, for sure.
And do you have any sort of activities or rituals or routines that you implement to keep yourself in momentum, to keep yourself going? Like, do you have a really structured day? Like, how do you keep yourself going, basically?
Yeah, it's not so structured. I have some elements that are the same regardless. So I go for a walk every morning. So I go outside, and I live in Sweden, where right now, it's kind of cold and dark in the morning. But I just, you just dress up and you head out. So that's a routine, and I can do walking every day as opposed to like running or anything that was like super taxing. I would often talk myself out of it. So I think the trick is to find something
Yeah.
you can commit to every day. So yes, just moving every day. And then at every day, 8 a.m., I have a writing group. And we meet and we write for an hour on Zoom. We just turn off our videos and microphones and just write. And there's no accountability other than just showing up. No one checks your drafts or anything. But it's just a way to put pen to paper and to give yourself dedicated writing time every day. And so I take that time to maybe write my emails, or like my emails that are outgoing, not just my, not checking emails, but write, marketing emails to my newsletter list, and helpful blogs or content, or write, my writing projects. So those are the two mainstays of every single day. And then after that, I generally work sort of later at night because most of my clients are in the US. So time zone wise, I shift towards evening. So it's pretty flexible. I have found having young children, and I need breaks in the middle of the day to pick them up from school and hang with them. And then, I say good night and I get back to work. So that's kind of how my day
Oh,
goes.
yes, it works quite nice. I
Yeah.
really like that writing room because, like you said, no one's actually looking at what you do, but it's almost like positive peer pressure to all be doing it together at the same time and having that community.
Exactly. And I think it's just more no one's checking your notes. But if you say, hey, I'll see you tomorrow, and just sort of penciling it in on the calendar, there is a bit of accountability that goes into that. And so just knowing that other people are writing along with you is enough to kind of just keep going and dedicate that time and hold that space for writing.
Yeah, and I also do the first thing in the morning. I get up, and now as well, it's cold. I'm in Spain at the moment, but it's still cold. So I get up and I just go for a walk with my dog. And the pace can change. Some days it's quick, some days it's really slow. But I like to just go for a walk 20 to 45 minutes and just be in a sort of gratitude state of just raw appreciation of where I am, where life is, and just the things around me, the plants, the leaves, my dog, and just being present in that moment. And I find that just starts my day with a nice, calming balance.
Yeah.
I find,
Yeah.
like you said, just walking and moving your body first thing, I find really
Exactly.
gets things going. And like you said, then you do get quite a creative spark. Like you want to do something creative afterwards. So whether that's writing or doing, like I say, something creative, something artistic, that seems to be extra fueled after doing a nice, blissful walk.
And I think, the key for my creativity is not to listen to podcasts when I'm walking, because I want to listen to a podcast while I'm walking. But I have found my ideas come when I pay attention to the world around me and allow my brain to be quiet. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's nice. It's nice to have that
It's,
time, an hour or so, to just have quiet, no screens, no inputs, just your brain thinking.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I had to do. I spent many years in my younger life, constantly I'd wake up, I'd go for the same walk, but I was so into what I'm going to be doing later that day and
Mm.
trying to get in as much information in that time. Like, oh, I'm walking and multitasking. I'm listening to a scientist talk about this, or I'm listening to someone, just trying to gather information and not
Mhm.
realizing that there's an abundance of information around, and just to sort of be in that space. So like I said, I like to turn my phone off or put my phone away and just go for the walk with nothing.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling like it's a really tough day and I just don't even want to go for that walk, sometimes I might just listen to a few songs that get my energy up, and then I go for the walk and then turn it off.
Yeah, I have a Spotify playlist I listen to with like positive affirmation songs, and they're not songs with I mean, I guess they're just positive songs with like positive lyrics. And I will often listen to that if I'm feeling down. But yeah, I try to walk with the sounds of nature around me. I guess it's a privilege to say I can walk through nature and enjoy that, as opposed to back when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, it was all very city noises, and you wanted to escape. So I would listen to music because there was no nature to be heard. It was just very
Yeah.
city, urban life, which is also inspiring. It's a different type of inspiration.
Well, our time is running out, so I'm going to give you just some shorter questions. These are going to be like a one answer sort of response, but if you want to go into them a little bit more, you can.
Okay.
Now, these are questions I ask all the guests at the end. So you ready for a few little questions?
Sure, I'll do my best.
Yeah. So if you could only choose one, and you said you was an animal lover, but if you had to just choose one, a cat or a dog?
And dog.
That was a quick response, a dog.
Oh yeah.
So everyone always has a preference, even if they struggle. There's always some, but some people you just know which one it is. What's your favorite color?
Purple.
Oh, same as mine. I've had a few purples recently.
Oh, nice.
Hmm. What excites you?
Um, Gosh, what excites me? I'm gonna do something adrenaline-ish like skydiving.
Okay, that's very exciting.
I don't do it
What?
often, but
No.
adrenaline-ish things, yes.
Okay, and what turns you off?
Um, One-way conversations.
Mm. What sound or noise do you love?
Um, oh, we're coming up in December. I'm gonna say holiday music, Christmas music.
Okay. And what sound or noise do you hate?
Um, the noise my dryer makes when it's off kilter and I have to go down and fix it. It's a beeping noise.
Okay. What's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear, um, missed time with my family.
What do you challenge about yourself?
I think I need to challenge myself more, not to be too comfortable and to continue to push myself to try new things, and that requires a bit of discomfort. So to be a little less comfortable.
What do you love about yourself?
I think I love how I connect with people and hopefully make them feel comforted in some way or connected to me in some way that's positive.
What do you love in others?
I love their drive and inspiration and hearing their stories and just, yeah, seeing people do amazing things.
Okay, and what do you love about animals?
Unconditional love, their ability to just love no matter what.
Yeah, I think animals especially dogs, like you say, really
Yes.
have that quality and
Yes.
can show you what that unconditional love is all about.
Yeah.
That was the last of the questions. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up? I want to get your website and where people can find you so they can
Yes.
interact with you and join you. But is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, that was it. Really, I think, just create, just keep creating in whatever medium you want to create in at that time and follow the path of least resistance to a point and then get uncomfortable for a little bit to grow because that's where you grow. But yeah, when things line up and it seems like the universe is aligned and pointing you in a direction, head in that direction.
Yeah, nice. And where can people find you? You have a website, Instagram and Facebook, or
Yes,
where's best
I have a
placed?
bunch. I have a bunch.
Yeah.
So, I have lisaferland.com, which was my website with the most crowdfunding resources you can find if you're interested in crowdfunding your book. And then on Instagram, I'm at crowdfunding for authors, and also at Lisa Ferland _. So you can find me in lots of different places. I try not to spread myself too thin across all the social media, but sometimes I have found that different projects require different audiences. So you have to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, that's something at the beginning I thought, I need to be on all of them. I signed up on like every single one and then realized like, I don't, you start to, like you said, water yourself out a little bit and you're not as present as you need to be on with the communities that you are building.
Exactly, exactly. And I think for, some projects, it's good to set up a new account because then you can really customize your feed for people who are interested in that account. So it can be rewarding, but it can also be time consuming. So you have to guard your time wisely.
Yeah, and it was actually YouTube that I found you on through your
Oh,
videos on there.
great.
What was your YouTube channel?
I think you can just type in Lisa Ferland Consulting or
And
crowdfunding and it comes right up.
yeah, there's some really helpful videos on there that I've watched. I haven't watched them all yet, but I've been slowly making my way through them.
Great.
Some really good content, and like I said, just helps with that process.
Yes, and
And
definitely head to my website as well, because that will have a lot more content there as well, not in video format.
Yeah, and I will definitely be in touch with you and your team when I'm at the stage that I need to be to start the crowdfunding process. At the beginning, I
Perfect.
was thinking I needed to start it to get started, but I think
Get
it's much
started to
better
get
to,
started.
yeah, now I'm going to wait until it's actually ready so I can put that full-time crowdfunding into the crowdfunding, not into the creation of the book itself.
Yes, yes. Again, there are different ways to do it, and there's a different path for everyone. So good on you for finding the one that works best for you.
Thank you. It's been beautiful to talk with you. I really appreciate you for being on the show.
Oh, thanks
And
so much, Luke.
look forward to catching up with you in the future. And good luck with everything you do and all the books that you have in process.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Thanks. I did. It was lovely. Good conversation. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, it's nice to get to know you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye now.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to the Selfish Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Greenheart, and I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel. Just search Luke Greenheart on YouTube. You'll find me. Check out my website, lukegreenheart.com. Have an amazing day, and stay tuned for more episodes. I'll be interviewing guests on their path of self-development, their paths of self, getting to know them in much more intimacy, much more depth, sharing and connecting with all so we can have a much more blissful, joyful, and productive life together. All right, much love. Have a great day.